Okay, so welcome everybody. My name is Suzanne. I'm moderating today's webinar, the Ability Tools webinar, Modifying Your Home for Safety. Carrie Grip with Rebuilding Together and Charlie Ludman from Accessibility Connections will be sharing their information. And with that, we're transferring over now to our speakers, where Carrie and Charlie will introduce themselves. So take it away.
This is Carrie Griff. I'm the Executive Director of Rebuilding Together in Sacramento. And I'll tell you a little bit more about our organization in a minute, but we are a nonprofit home improvement organization, and we have chapters across the state, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute.
I'm Charlie Ludeman, owner of Accessibility Connection and a remodeling contractor. And I have been doing remodeling space for accessibility in residential homes for about 10 years now, doing everything from just simple grab bars to complete bathroom remodels and kitchen remodels to allow for accessibility.
Great. Next slide, please. And today we're going to talk a little bit about our organizations and how you might access services through our organization. We're going to talk a little bit about how to assess a home for accessibility, types of modifications. We have some slides that will show pictures, and we'll talk about what is in the pictures and different examples. And we'll get a little bit of information about resources that we know about, and then, of course, have time for question and answers. Next slide, please. So Rebuilding Together, we are a nonprofit organization, and there's a slide that it mentions our mission statement, which is repairing homes, revitalizing neighborhoods, and rebuilding lives. And the mission statement addresses three different audiences, basically. We work in homes, we work in neighborhoods, and most importantly, we work with individuals and try to make their lives a little bit simpler. Next slide, please. We call ourselves a safe and healthy housing organization. We understand the connection between the condition of a home and a person's ability to thrive. And we use that kind of as our principles behind the work that we do. We also consider ourselves a community revitalization partner. We work with other organizations and communities to bring about change in neighborhoods and safe and healthy housing. We use 7 principles of a safe and healthy home. Typically, when we're looking at homes where we're doing a lot of different work, we will evaluate the home based on 7 principles. And basically, those are looking at a home in terms of, is it dry, is it ventilated, safe, pest-free, contaminant-free, excuse me. And there's a couple others that we look at. We are a nationwide organization. There are about 130 affiliates across the country and about 15 affiliates in California. And the services do vary among all the different affiliates. Some of the affiliates are very small with just volunteer staff, and then some have many staff members. So it is different in the different communities that we work. We've been in Sacramento since 1991, and we've improved about 6,500 homes during that time. Next slide. We have 3 categories of services that we provide. The first is, there's a picture of 2 gentlemen who are painting a house, and this represents what we call our rebuild events. Those are home repair events that we put on once or twice a year in targeted areas within different communities. So we basically adopt a community or a neighborhood, and we will bring volunteers out to work on the different homes in those neighborhoods. And the repairs and the improvements vary from cleaning up trash to sometimes we'll remodel the bathroom and some other improvements. The next picture is of a gentleman installing a grab bar and a shower. And this is for our Safe at Home and Critical Repair program. And Safe at Home is basically our home modification program. We provide simple modifications like grab bars in showers, shower seats, and some other items that we'll mention in a little bit. And then we also have a home energy conservation program where we provide simple things like energy efficiency light bulbs. We'll caulk windows and weather strip doors. We will insulate the electrical plates so that airflow doesn't go through those. Anything to provide some sort of energy efficiency savings in that home. Next slide. There's a slide, and this is represents our Safe at Home program. There's a slide with some pictures of grab bars in a bathroom next to the door and next to the toilet, so the person can hold on to those as they go in and out. And grab bars typically are the most popular thing that we do in our organization, but we also provide things like handheld shower hose. There's a picture here of a handheld shower hose that we can provide, and there are some others. Next slide, please. So eligibility for the Safe at Home program. Within our organization in Sacramento and with the other affiliates in California, we provide free services for those who are low to moderate income. And we use the HUD guidelines for low and moderate, which does vary in the different communities a little bit. We work in owner-occupied homes, and at our organization, we also, and some of the other affiliates, I think, also serve those who are in rental properties, and that varies per affiliate. We also provide some services for a fee. If somebody doesn't meet those low to moderate income guidelines, we can give an estimate on the work that we do. The process is that somebody would call us or go on our website and download one of our applications and submit the application. We do require some income verification documents, and then we will call and schedule an appointment to come to the home. And sometimes we can actually do the work right when we go to the home the first time. Sometimes we'll go to the home and do a home preview, just depending on the extent of the work that's needed. Next slide.
Accessibility Connection is, as I mentioned, a general contractor. I do work that goes a little farther than Rebuilding Together. We'll do the big remodels and things. I've been in business here in this particular business for about 10 years and doing all types of remodeling. And I have numerous certifications. I don't know if we want to go into all those right now, but one of the major ones is CAPS, which is through the National Association of Home Builders. It's Certified Aging in Place Specialist. And my focus is on fall prevention. And that's basically trying to make homes accessible, comfortable, and safe. And we're talking about all homes, not just homes for elderly. And I service the Sacramento area, plus Placer County, some in El Dorado County. And I go out to Davis a little bit farther at times. So. Next slide. Universal design is, most people are familiar with that now. It's designing homes that are usable and are built to be accessible for all people of all ages and all ability levels. Most of the new homes being built now are not really built with universal design. However, most of the big builders, you can, I believe, custom order things that do help. Most of our work is in existing homes and helping with accessibility, things like widening doorways, changing carpet to maybe laminate flooring or LVT, electrovinyl tile type flooring or wood flooring, remodeling spaces so that it's accessible by wheelchair or people with walkers, and mostly involving safety modifications that just help movement around the house, lighting, and some of the plumbing fixtures can be improved to be more accessible for people. And so that's basically what we do. Next slide.
So home assessments, we'll talk about the 3 different types of assessments that can be done. We know that many of you on the call probably have your own process or tools that you use for this, but we'll mention what we know of. There's basically 3 different types of assessments that we think people can access. One is, of course, to hire a professional assessor, somebody who has been trained in assessing a home. It could be a contractor that's been through some, like Charlie, who's been certified in various specialty areas. Of course, occupational therapists and other healthcare workers have been trained in those areas. You know, we always recommend that they work together in assessing a home and making recommendations. There's also community service organizations that may do this. I'm sure there's some resources maybe available through some of your organizations or through ability tools. May have some ideas on that. Also, there's many do-it-yourself assessments online, from simple to very in-depth assessments. We actually were looking at different samples and we thought there's just so many of them that we didn't want to recommend one in particular, but there are a lot that you can access online. Next slide. So the next thing we have is a slide that just talks a little bit about the various areas to assess. And as I was making this slide, I realized, you know what, really, you have to just assess the whole house. There's people try to access every area in the home, so we think it's important to look at all different areas. And this slide just lists all the different areas: bathrooms, kitchen, bedrooms, hallways, doorways, floors, stairs, walkways, garage, yard, and parking. Next slide.
Some of the considerations to look at are the type of disability. If a person is in a wheelchair, like a self-powered wheelchair, is quite different from somebody in a wheelchair that has a caretaker that pushes them. And the physical abilities, a lot of my clients have maybe MS or ALS or one of those diseases that limits their abilities. So what you do to make the house safer really depends on the type of disability and the area of the home that the person spends most of their time in. First, we know that the bathroom is probably the most critical room for where most injuries in the home occur, because it's a small space and it has lots of hard surfaces. And if you fall in the bathroom, you're probably going to hit something. Another consideration is the age of the person. And first, we know that we're all getting older, and right now I've just read that the people over 65 outnumber children nowadays in our country. So this is becoming a real issue as far as mobility and accessibility. Take into account the room, the home, the room layout, heavy use areas. Activities require assistance sometimes with caretakers. Then medical supplies and equipment. That's not really in my area, but I do run into that. Some of the equipment, if you want to call it equipment, would be like security poles and why I say widening doorways, threshold ramps, and things can help mobility around the home. Another thing to really look at too is not just the situation right now, but I encourage my clients to think 5 or 10 years out. If they're going to do some major work on a home, it's best to do what you think your future is going to be rather than have to redo it again later. Another critical area is lighting. With the new LED lighting fixtures, a lot of them you can retrofit into existing lighting by changing light bulbs, or can lights can be changed from the fluorescent that was required back in the 80s to the LEDs now, which are very nice and dimmable. Those are some of the areas.
Mm-hmm.
Next slide.
And one thing I want to mention also is, you know, a lot of the homes that we go into, there's some very, very basic things that can be done just to reduce the hazards. The flooring, like we mentioned, the way the furniture is laid out, tripping hazards, things like that. So there's some real basic things that we notice that can greatly reduce the risk of falling.
I just jump in here for a second. One of the things that I noticed in homes is I find a lot of clutter. Sometimes piles of newspapers or magazines in awkward places like on stairways or in walkways. Best to eliminate that. Also, look out for extension cords running across a walkway. It's a very serious trip hazard. And another one you always hear about are throw rugs. A lot of throw rugs, after they get a little older, the corners will curl up or whatever, and those are extreme trip hazards. Another thing to look at, we're talking about bathroom, first grab bars, which in my opinion, grab bars are a little bit misnamed. They're more balance bars than grab bars because you use them to keep from falling, and not necessarily after you fall and grab one, but they're really there to help you balance so that you don't ever even start to fall. Barrier-free showers. There are a lot available now. Some are the fiberglass type with low threshold. There's also, we do remodels where we do lower the floor in the shower so you can roll right in with no barrier at all. Accessible toilets. Most companies make the what they call comfort height or chair height toilets. There are also some even taller available on the market that are up to 21 inches tall. First, modifying vanity for to wheel under it. That's the important item for a lot of people. And we do a lot of handheld showers, and usually put them on a slide bar so you can raise it up high or lower it down if the person's in a chair in the shower. It's nice to have the shower head lower than it normally would be set. And first, lower mirrors. If you lower the vanity, you lower the mirrors. Cabinet hardware, D pulls are best. Other types of pulls are hard to use, or you can get caught on them. So you want to make sure that the hardware isn't a hazard as far as getting a shirt sleeve or a pocket caught on the pole as you go by. And widening doorways is important. You need ADA, which does not apply to residential, but it's a good guideline. They require 32 inches clear for wheelchair access. A lot of wheelchairs can go through and we'll talk a little bit later about widening how to make the door without changing the door to get more space. Next slide. Here's a picture of a shower, an accessible shower, and a shower chair, and it shows the grab bars and the handheld shower. Also shows the toilet right next to the shower with a loop grab bar that I can't see exactly, but it's probably the type that folds up out of the way when you don't need it. And this is the type, very accessible type shower. And usually it has a curtain. Some have glass doors. I don't really recommend glass doors in most cases because they're usually in the way and they're very heavy. But this one has a curtain, and the curtain's usually weighted so that it stays down when the water hits it. The other picture shows a shower chair inside a bathtub. And it has little handles on it, so when you sit, you have something to hold on to.
Next slide.
Here's a before and after pictures of a bathroom. Before, there's a tub with a curtain, the toilet, and the vanity. All it's a very typical hallway bathroom in many houses that we run into. And it shows the remodeled shower that has a new tile floor, and then the floor of the shower is flush with the tile floor, and it just slopes into the drain. A lot of times we use the linear drain in the back so that the shower floor it's flat, but it's sloped to the back. And this picture shows the handheld shower, the slide bar, and the toilet. And it doesn't show a glass door, it doesn't show a curtain, but I'm assuming it has a curtain. If your shower is deep enough, sometimes you don't really need a curtain. If you have a caretaker, there are caretaker curtains that come up about 3 feet. So the caretaker can stand outside the shower and help you inside the shower. And the shower here shows that it has plenty of room for a wheelchair. The shower should be at least 36 inches wide. You can do it with narrower, but for convenience, 36 inches seems to be good for having a wheelchair in there and also somebody helping. Next slide. Another picture of an accessible shower and bathroom. It shows a vanity that you can roll the wheelchair in underneath. And the shower is a roll-in shower. It also shows the grab bars and handheld shower with it. The next picture is an upper end shower, all tile floor, and it's the roll-in type where there's no threshold at all. It shows glass doors, large glass doors that both open out, or a lot of times they'll open both ways. And it shows a vanity with a vessel sink. This looks, it would be kind of an upper end shower, but it's kind of a typical remodel.
Yeah, we were trying to give examples of different cost modifications. We realize everybody doesn't have the resources for all of these types, but at least they can give you some ideas. Next slide.
In the kitchen areas, a lot of things important in the kitchen area. If you're in a wheelchair, the countertop height recommended is 34 inches. That's kind of an ADA recommendation, or standard actually for ADA. Easier to access the counter if you're sitting in a wheelchair. As far as cabinets, a lot of times we'll put a cabinet that's accessible at the sink cabinet with the doors that either flip open and slide back in so you can roll underneath the sink. Kitchen sinks are large, so it's hard to get underneath them. Deeper usually than bathroom sinks. And as far as storage space goes, it's really recommended that you put all the commonly used items down low. I know in some kitchens that's hard to do. But there are a lot of aftermarket items available, and I've actually done it in my own kitchen. Rollouts, put pots and pans in so you don't have to crawl in or reach in way underneath to get things. You can access everything. Appliances are countertop appliances. It also helps to have the lower countertop. If you're accessing like toaster ovens or things like my favorite, the Instant Pot. It's better to have a lower cabinet if you're in a wheelchair. And we talked about the sink or pantry. That's a luxury item. To me, it is anyway. I'd love to have a pantry, but if you do have a design, if you're designing a new pantry, it'd be, and you're in a wheelchair, then an important consideration would be the entrance width to it. Or possibly they're talking about a cabinet pantry with rollouts that are accessible. Upper cabinets are hard to reach. However, they do make some that will actually, you can actually pull down to countertop level, at least the bottom shelf you can reach. And then they go back up against the wall, because that's an upper end item that helps with upper cabinet space.
Next slide.
Well, here we have a picture of a sink cabinet, a kitchen sink that you can roll under and use. With the little cutting board and all the little goodies that you can reach, the faucet, and I don't know what she's reaching over there, probably a spray or something. And then on the other picture is a gentleman in a wheelchair with the upper cabinet lower so that he can reach the bottom shelf.
Next slide.
Here's a picture of a lot of times in kitchens you have a little narrow space that's too narrow for a cabinet, and you want to utilize the space. They do. A lot of companies will offer a pull-out, and it shows a opening on one side of it where inside are hanging pots and pans and holding different cooking items inside that. Also, a lot of times these are used for spice shelves or condiments that don't need to be refrigerated can go in to these little narrow cabinets, and they're very accessible.
Next slide. Oh, so this is something I'll talk about a little bit. This is a picture of a offset hinge, and it actually is placed on a door to widen the door another 1.5 inches for wheelchair accessibility. And it's a very simple way of widening that door without having to change any structural, make any structural changes. And this is something that we're able to do because it is relatively low cost. Anything you want to say about that, Charlie?
Yeah, basically what it does is it moves, door hinges have a pin that's usually right between the door jamb and the door. This moves the pin out to the side farther, so the door can open and it swings out of the way and leaves more. It's usually about 1.5 inches more space width. So if you have a 30-inch door, you can get, minus the stops, you'll get about 29 inches of width to go through. And the next picture shows a door handle, an interior door handle, and a lock, like a deadbolt type lock. And it's showing the lever handle. There's also, it's showing I guess this is a keyed push button entry lock. Also, it doesn't show it, but another really useful item to have is the motorized door opener. We do those to where you have a remote, a pendant remote, or a wireless remote on the wall, and you just run your hand near it and the door will open, and you can adjust the time the door's open and how far the door opens. And you can go through, and then the door will close behind you. They do have the electric strike feature on a lot of them, so that it's still safe, and you can lock the door. Of course, you have to unlock any deadbolt before you try to open the door. In most cases, the electric strike will not operate a deadbolt. Another item that's popular are pocket doors. Some of the newer ones, the better quality ones, work quite well for saving space. You don't have the door opening in your way, and you don't have to deal with that while you're going through. They even have automatic openers for pocket doors also. So you can just hit the button and the door will open, and you go through and it'll close behind you.
Next slide. Here's a picture of a door threshold, and it's a strip that's placed between doors when there's a little step up or a lip there. This is something, and Charlie can tell you more about it, but there's different types out there. This one, it looks like it's kind of a metal type threshold. These are simple items that we can install for our organization. There are some different types. Charlie can tell you a little bit about that.
One of the common items about the door thresholds on patio sliding doors, most of them have about 1.5 inches lip that sticks up on the inside. Difficult to get over in a wheelchair. And there are companies that make, there's one company here in California that makes a recycled rubber ramp that works well, and they come in all different heights. You can actually get some of them up to 6 inches rise. And they work well. The smaller ones, the lower ones work well in doorways where you have maybe 1 inch or 1.5 inches. I put them in even at 1/2 inch, so you can just kind of roll right over the threshold. And there's also aluminum ramps that I like for interior or even front doors. I like the rubberized ones personally.
Mm-hmm.
The other picture shows a gentleman installing a handrail. It looks like on a stairway. That's an important issue on stairways. There really should be, if possible, a handrail on both sides, because it just makes it much, much safer going up and down stairways.
And that's actually one of our, in the picture, there's a gentleman who is one of our longtime volunteers who's been wonderful in doing this for a long period of time. Next slide, please. I'll let Charlie talk about this because there's a picture that he actually, something that he actually built.
The picture on the left is a black wrought iron railing that we put in for a person that was not in a wheelchair, obviously, because there's not a ramp there, but needed assistance getting up and down those stairs to be safe. And on the other picture is an aluminum ramp. It looks like a modular aluminum ramp that can be made. These are made by a company up in Washington that can be configured in all different shapes and to fit almost every situation, to have a nice easy ramp. Usually the ideal is about 1 inch of ramp per 1 inch, 12 inches of ramp per 1 inch of rise. So that's kind of the ADA standard. It's better if you can actually make that a little less slope, especially if you're self-powering a wheelchair, and it's a long run, it can be hard. So, but that's very typical to put a aluminum ramp in. They're modular, they are weather resistant, and they're also not a fixture on the house. So you don't need it anymore. You can just take it away and you haven't changed your house at all. You don't have to modify the house.
And at Rebuilding Together, we do periodically have funding for these types of ramps. So if you are in Sacramento and have somebody who might need one, let us know and we can look at our funding and see if we're able to provide one of those. And the nice thing about those, we do ask that if somebody no longer needs it, they contact us and we can recycle it basically and let somebody else use it. So that's the beauty of those ramps. Next slide.
On interior stairs, the stairway chairs are really nice in many situations. If you have just a straight stairway, they're pretty easy and almost affordable. But if you have to go around corners, that about triples the price. They have to be engineered, and it gets really in some cases, if you're going up to a landing and then you turn and you go up another set of stairs. I've had situations, I've seen situations where you've had to make a couple of turns, or sometimes you have to come down to the bottom or up to the top and then do a 180 turn around to get the chair out of the way. They are very useful in many, many situations. Exterior, this is showing a platform lift next to a regular stairway up onto a deck. This is pretty common to use, especially they're great for mobile homes where usually the mobile home door sill is up about 32 to 36 inches up above the ground. So to build a ramp, the ramp has to be about 30 some feet long and usually takes up an entire parking area of on a mobile home. Mm-hmm. But the lift can save all that space. They're very practical.
And that reminds me of something that we have some funding for is replacing mobile home steps. We often come across mobile home steps that are deteriorating, and so we've been able to replace some of those. So keep that in mind if you know somebody who might need that. Next slide.
There's a picture of a gentleman using a security pole, which is a tension pole that usually fits between the ceiling and the floor, and it's on a tension adjusted to be tight, and very useful for getting up and down out of chairs, out of bed, and also used in bathrooms between toilets and showers. There's many, many uses for the security poles.
And the next slide is a motion-activated LED bed light. And believe it or not, this is one of the most popular things when we speak to older adults. They love this light. It's something that is affixed to the bed frame underneath, and it lights up when somebody steps out of bed. So it's motion-activated. And it's nice because it just gives a little extra lighting as they're getting up to go to the restroom at night. It's a nice little feature. Very inexpensive. Next slide. Once again, Charlie talked about lighting, how important lighting is in a home. So we have a picture of a lamp, table lamp right there. And we do give out new light bulbs, and we also oftentimes provide table lamps and torche lamps just to light up the room a little bit better for an individual. And there's another picture of the pole, the floor-to-ceiling pole that Charlie just mentioned.
I can jump in. Those poles also, at least most of the companies that make the poles also offer handle options where you can have a handle that comes out maybe 15, 16 inches, I believe, maybe 18 inches. And it's adjustable so you can lift it slightly and turn it all the way around the pole, so it helps you pull yourself up out of a chair or wherever you have to pull yourself up out of bed. You use them. You have something to hold on to once you sit up and you get ready to stand up. It's just something to hold on to because they're very, very useful for that.
Next slide. So our next slide is titled Online Resources. We started listing out different resources that we know about, and there are a lot out there, or there's some that we're not terribly familiar with, but some of you may know about. First of all, we mentioned the safety and accessibility assessment tools that there are a lot online, as we mentioned before. Then we mentioned funding opportunities. We are not familiar with a lot of financing and funding opportunities, but I did notice some online, and some of you may know some of those options. We do in Sacramento, the Housing and Redevelopment Agency has funded some accessibility improvements in the past. I don't know if they are right now unless it's in an emergency type situation, but that's an option. In some communities, there's the city or the county housing fund, and some of the jurisdictions will allocate some of that money for accessibility. And then we just online, there's lots of tips, and also trying to find a professional in your community. We did notice that there are a lot listed online. We also have a picture on here of the Home Fit Guide, which is a program of AARP, and it's they offer classes. I don't know if they do it in all communities, but in Sacramento they do offer classes. I think they're 1 or 1.5 hour sessions for people to come to and just learn more about accessibility options in their home. They also have some online guides that you can download that are pretty good. And then there's another picture here of a chart that we saw online, just making your home wheelchair accessible. Also the CDC, we noticed that the CDC has some good checklists and basics also. Next slide. So the next slide is just our contact information. I know we're going to jump into question and answers if there are some, but we have our name and number, phone number listed there if you need to contact one of us, or check out our websites. They're not listed there, but we can give those out if necessary. So that's what we've got right now. We'll move to Suzanne. I think she's managing any questions there may be.
Hi, everybody. So we have a question from Jim, and he asks, Carrie, Charlie, are there any tax breaks for modification construction?
I understand there's some legislation going in that they're working on now to give tax breaks. I don't know of any at this time.
Yeah.
Other than you can, well, even now as far as deducting off your capital costs on a house, but I think that doesn't really apply anymore in most cases.
Yeah. And I am also not, sorry about that, not familiar with any tax breaks, but when I was researching online, I did see some articles about it, but unfortunately, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. Lynn asks, does Charlie know of other contractors in East Bay who do the kind of work he does?
I don't know any in East Bay, but a good resource to go to would be the National Association of Home Builders. It's called the CAPS program, CAPS, Certified Aging in Place Specialist. It's a certification through the National Association of Home Builders. There's also the NARI, the National Association of the Remodeling Industry, has a program called Universal Design Certified Professional. That's something to look for in that area, contractors that have those certifications.
Mm-hmm. And you might also contact the Rebuilding Together in that area. They may know somebody who has worked with them, who they use and trust.
Okay, great. Next question. Emily asks, how much are those little motion activated lights? I'd really like those as a simple safety solution.
Yeah, I told you those are popular. Those range between 10 and 20 bucks, and we buy them online. They sometimes come in a case of 2, sometimes 1. That's something to think about if it's somebody who, if there are 2 people in the bed or 1 person in the bed, basically. But yes, they're very popular. They're easy to install, and they are pretty effective.
Great. We're getting lots of questions. So the next question is from Michelle. Charlie or Carrie, do you know of any motorized door openers or similar devices for sliding glass doors?
Yes, there is. There are door openers available for sliding glass doors. I have not installed any of those, but there is a company, I'm not recalling the name of it right now, but if you want to contact me, my email's on the screen. I can find that out and get it back to you.
Okay, Tom asks, what can be done in the shower area to install grab bars when there is not adequate anchoring backing for a safe installation?
Well, there's a big debate on that goes on. Some people say that you have to mount them into a stud. Well, that's not necessarily true. There are other anchoring systems that can work just as well in a lot of showers. I put grab bars in tile showers, and I use an anchor system that doesn't require going into a stud. There are some people say you should never go into a stud because you don't know what the condition of that stud is. You might hit a real soft spot. You might hit a knot or something where it's not going to be as strong as you think. Also, I have a product that I usually use it on granite or can actually be done on glass or quartz that glues on, and it comes from Germany, and it's ADA compliant. So you don't have to drill any holes, but it takes a certain type of shower to do that. Even some tile you can do it on, but so it's not absolutely, in my opinion, it's not absolutely 100% necessary to hit a stud or solid backing when you install grab bars in most showers. Fiberglass showers is another situation. In a fiberglass shower, there's no drywall or anything behind the fiberglass. There's a space, usually an inch or maybe even more, of voided space behind it. So in that situation, you do have to hit a stud in order to use the type of mounting system that's available for fiberglass. You have to hit it. I've run into situations in showers where they were fiberglass, but you could not tell at all. There was no way to tell where the studs were in the wall. So I didn't put the bars in because that's a requirement for fiberglass.
Sometimes if we can't install the grab bar, we will provide a tub bar that attaches to the tub. Yeah, I mean, it's another option.
Great. Excuse me. Charlie, Jim asks if you would please share the name of the modular aluminum ramp company in Washington State.
Oh, that's easy. Easy Access. Called Easy, the two letters, not spelled out easy, but the letter E, the letter Z, Access. A very good company. And their ramps are, I use a lot of those. That's the one I prefer, actually. As far as their engineering goes and the ease to put them together and install them, they've really come a long way.
Great. Lynn asks if there are any good, easy ideas for mattresses that are too high.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I don't know if this is the correct thing to say. I know one time some of our volunteers actually cut down the legs just to make it shorter. Charlie can address that, whether or not that's a good idea.
That's not really in my area, but
Okay.
I don't have a good answer for that one other than what Carrie says is to just shorten the legs.
If that's possible.
If it's possible.
Yeah, they must sell shorter frames, but
they may, yeah.
Sorry about that. I'll know the answer to that one.
Okay. Well, we still have another question. Martin asks if the grab bars can typically be installed safely in fiberglass by using wing-it fasteners.
In a fiberglass shower?
I would assume so. Martin, I don't know if you could clarify your...
Most fiberglass showers are made, the walls of the showers are flexible and they're fairly thin. Actually, if you look at a cutout of it, some of them look like a cardboard with fiberglass sprayed on one side and a finish on the other side. They're very flexible. So I would not recommend a wing it in a fiberglass shower. There's a type of anchor system called solid mount that you have to bolt into a stud, and there's a spacer between the stud and the shower wall, and then that's what holds the grab bar, not the shower itself.
Okay, we have two more questions, and then that should probably wrap us up. The first one is from Michelle, and she is asking if there's any possibility of Rebuilding Together extending their footprint to the San Joaquin County in the future.
I hope so. And I think I actually heard recently that there may be one starting. So if I can check on that, if you can give me your contact information, I don't know if we can do that on here, or contact me, and then I can let you know if there is one starting in that area. I know we have received calls down there from organizations that have wanted one developed down there. We would love to. But yeah, contact me and I'll let you know if there's one in the works.
Okay, and then Samantha asks, if you buy a fixer-upper home, does it qualify for this service?
Qualify for the service?
I think meaning maybe for Rebuilding Together.
Sure. So for our service, if if you own the home and if they meet the income guidelines, then they do qualify for it. You know, something like the grab bars and those types of modifications. Unless there's something structurally wrong with where we're installing things, it would be fine.
Okay, I think we pretty much have reached the end of our time, although there are a couple more comments. Let me just quickly read what Michelle wrote. She said, to answer the previous question about lowering a bed, those mattress retailers typically sell a box spring that is not as tall and it takes up less space.
Oh, that's great.
And then Martin, one last comment, Martin, regarding the fiberglass bar, he says that they have installed, he said, we'll disagree on the issue about installing fiberglass using wing-it fasteners. He has installed over 30,000 of them successfully. So that was his comment.
We'll agree to agree.
There you go. So I think we've come to the end of our hour. And I'd like to thank everybody for their participation and questions, and for Carrie and Charlie for lots of fantastic information.
And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you both.